Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at the new Combat Patrol. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Ways to play Warhammer 40,000. Combat Patrol is fast and fun. The new edition of Warhammer 40,000 is rapidly incoming, and it's an exciting time for fans of endless warfare and the 41st millennia. Over the last few weeks, you've learned a bit about the new chapter-approved games offer match play missions and different victory conditions in the new edition. So it's time for the next of the flagship game modes, Combat Patrol. And for me, Combat Patrol is particularly exciting because it's basically going to be the first exposure most players get towards joining the game, joining the hobby, or starting their first army. So it's very important that it is a simple entry point. It's not confusing, it's fast, it's fun, and it gives people the ability to get a hold of some models, get them built and potentially painted and on the table, so they're playing games in no time, and next thing you know it, they are hooked on the hobby. Combat Patrol has been designed for a wide variety of players. It can be picked up by new and returning players, people who might struggle to find time for larger games, players who want to try a new faction without building a 1,000 point army, or people who simply want to master a new game format. Instead of building an army from a selection of datasheets and points values, your games will feature balanced but varied forces based on the Combat Patrol boxes you can find in stores. You simply pick up the Combat Patrol box from your favorite faction, build your miniatures, and get ready to battle. It really is as simple as that. The Leviathan launch box itself contains enough miniatures to assemble 2 full Combat Patrols. The Vardengast Swarm for Tyranids and the Strike Force Octavius for the Space Marines. These 2 armies are made up of some, but not all, of the models in the box. The rulebook inside the Leviathan launch box, the core book, will also be available separately. Contains the organizational rules for Combat Patrol, and these will also be available to download for free here on Warhammer Community. There will be 6 missions designed exclusively for this game mode, which is played on a compact 44 by 30 board. That's 2 kill team boards pushed together. And you can look forward to Combat Patrol sections in future codexes. So I really like it. They lay out a ton of important information for us here. And then we can see actually from the new box set, Leviathan coming out, this is going to be Strike Force Octavius, and this is the Space Marine Combat Patrol. Now, I don't necessarily think they're going to be getting rid of the other Space Marine Combat Patrols. We have the generic one, and then of course we have like Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Black Templars, etc. But now I think this will be an additional Combat Patrol that we'll be able to use. And with 5 Terminators, 5 of the Flamer Bros, and then a Terminator Librarian and Terminator Captain, this is definitely an elite strike force of hard-hitting bros. So very, very cool. And then on to the Tyranids. We have Combat Patrol Tyranids, the Vardengast Swarm. And I don't know all the names of all of the new stuff here, but we see we have the Winged Warrior and 10 Termagants. And then we see 10 more Termagants in the background. And then we have the Van Ryan's Leapers here. And then we have these Barrage Bug guys. And then the crazy Psyker Eater creature. Not sure if those names are official. But we can see a massive difference between these two just in the model count alone. So the idea that all of this stuff is going to be balanced and there's going to be some fun game modes to play with them, I really like it. I'm definitely super excited for it. Very, very cool. So how does this game mode work? The Warhammer Studio have been hard at work tinkering with all the many disparate forces that are already available in order to create a fast, thrilling, and meaningful balanced end product. This process involves lots of playtesting, with gamers of all experience levels competing with each other to test out this exciting new game mode. Rules for each of the Combat Patrols were revised based on the feedback from these games to ensure each force hit the sweet spot of thematic, accessible, and balanced. The core principle is simple. Each Combat Patrol has been given a full set of self-contained rules that define it on the table. This includes datasheets, but also secondary objectives, faction rules, enhancements, and stratagems, all flavored to match the force's narrative and balanced against every other Combat Patrol. The majority of the datasheets have been modified, both to adapt units that would be overpowered in this format, but also to slim down more complex units into one defining rule that ensures players can master the key abilities of their units before discovering the full potential in larger games. To keep things balanced, the weapons options for these units have been fixed for all Combat Patrol datasheets, so there's no need to fret about your characters and unit equipment prior to the game. You don't need to worry about which guns to give your Chaos Space Marine Havocs, for example. The core rules remain the same, so nothing you learn in Combat Patrol will be redundant in Chapter Approved or Crusade games. Check out how the Captain in Terminator armor from the index cards compares with the streamlined Captain Octavius from Combat Patrol. So very cool. Again, they touch on a bunch of interesting points here. We're going to have different missions It's going to be 2 kill team boards pushed together. All the combat patrols will be balanced, and it discusses some of the levers that they're using to balance, like the custom objectives, secondaries, and then of course the modified data sheets. So let's take a look at the captain. All right, so we have the combat patrol data sheet on top, and then we have the regular data sheet on the bottom, and we see the actual statistics are all the same. We do see on the combat patrol data sheet that they have added in the 4+ invulnerable save little box right here under the stats. I do really like that a lot. I think that's great. Now he also has the 4+ invulnerable save down here, but the placement I really like because it's by the 2+, so you're not going to forget that you have that invulnerable. And I think little things like that help beginners. So ranged weapon wise, we'll see that the combat weapon is removed and you just have the Stormbolter option. Again, you can build them however you want, but your model would just have this profile for the actual games, which is great. And then for the melee weapons, we see the relic weapon, and the relic weapon is also an option for the full data sheet, but you have the chain fist, power fist, thunder hammer, and lightning claws as well. And then we do see the little leader title down here, and it says this model can be attached to the following units: Terminator Squad. So we don't see anything like that down here, so we'll assume this is a special restriction just for combat patrol. And then if we go over to the abilities, we see Core, Deep Strike, Leader on both data sheets. We see Faction, Oath of Moment on both data sheets. And then we see the Unstoppable Valor. You can reroll charge rolls made for this model's unit. And then we see there is a rule called the Imperial Sword on the regular data sheet, which is you can reroll charge rolls made for this model's unit. So I'm not sure if one of them is actually a typo or if there's a reason that they changed the name, but regardless, same ability nonetheless. So we see so far that everything is the same with the exception of some of your weapon options. And then we get down to the war gear abilities. You have the auxiliary grenade launcher and then the relic shield. The bearer has a wound characteristic of 7. So he does not get the benefits of the relic shield, but we see under that is the invulnerable save. So essentially all they've done is remove the extra weapon options, added some restrictions to who the character can join squad wise, and that's pretty much it. So it's just a little bit of a simplified version of the same sheet. You don't feel like you're missing a bunch of key parts of this character, or that you're not going to be able to fully capture what his purpose is in the game or how he's supposed to function. So pretty cool. I definitely like it. Every faction's army rules will remain largely the same. The Tyranids retain Shadow in the Warp and Synapse. For example, Patrol features enhancements unique to this game mode to let you tweak your warlord and try out new strategies. New to playing Tyranids and worried that your prized Tyranid Prime might be a little fragile? Psychostatic Veil gives your Terror of Vargeist 4+ invulnerable save and makes it harder to target at range or hit in melee. After you've got some games under your belt, you can try turning it into a nimble buff piece with the Secretion Goad enhancement, offering increased armor penetration to other units, perhaps your Termagant Swarm, Glorious Venomous Revenge. So we see the default enhancement, Psychostatic Veil. The bearer has a lone operative ability and 4+ invulnerable save. In addition, each time a melee attack targets that creature, subtract 1 from the hit roll. So pretty cool. And then if you decide that one's just not cutting it, or you want to try something different, you can try out the optional enhancement, Secretion Goad. Once per turn, when a friendly Tyranid unit within 6 inches of this bearer is selected to shoot or fight, the bearer can use this ability. If it does until the end of the phase, improve the armor penetration characteristic of weapons equipped by models in the friendly unit by 1. The 6 combat patrol missions in the core book each have their own characteristic mission rules, deployment map, and primary objectives. You'll find one change from the core rules here. Unless you're battle shocked, your battle line units can secure objective markers, allowing you to keep control of them even when your squads move on. This represents new applications for many battle line troops and board control challenges for the elite Space Marines. In addition to your mission's shared primary objective, every combat patrol can also choose between a pair of secondary objectives and let you define how you play. Wrath of the Emperor has you send your Juggernaut Captain right into the fray, spraying guts and acre with Stormbolter and Power Sword, scoring 2 victory points for each phase in which he kills any models. However, you may find certain armies are resistant to the hammer blow assault of one very chunky boy. As you develop your tactical nous, you might instead prefer to employ shock tactics to wrench back battlefield control with your elite Adeptus Astartes, scoring 5 victory points every turn you knock your enemies off an objective and take it for yourself. So pretty neat. I like that they have a couple of different choices, but it's relatively limited. Lets you experience some different rules, some different play styles, but overall still fits the theme of the army. Alright, so here we see the default secondary objective, Wrath of the Emperor. At the end of each phase, you score 2 victory points if your captain model destroyed 1 or more enemy models that phase. Or, optional secondary objective, shock tactics. At the end of each player's turn, you score 5 victory points if you control one or more objective markers that your opponent controlled at the start of that turn. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now, back to the video. Even stratagems are brought into consideration. Each combat patrol has just 3 bespoke stratagems, with one that's designed to be reactive. These are also part of balancing and combat patrol. The Varangast swarm gets to top up its squishy termagant swarms with teeming broods, bringing back destroyed models or even recycling a whole unit as strategic reserves. Maybe shooting them off the board isn't such a good idea. So we see teeming broods, 1 command point, Varangast swarm strategic deploy stratagem, when the reinforcement step of your movement phase. Target 1 termagant unit from your army. You can use this stratagem on a unit even if it is destroyed. Effect: if your unit is not destroyed, return up to a d6 destroyed models to it. Otherwise, add a new unit to your army identical to your destroyed unit in strategic reserves containing 2d6 models. So you can either reinforce a single unit that's still on the table with the d6 extra models, or you can bring back 1 fully destroyed unit with 2d6 models. Pretty neat. It won't have escaped your attention that certain combat patrols contain big, tough monsters and formidable vehicles, while others are somewhat lacking in the heavy weapons you normally use to take such targets down. Stratagems like Veteran Instincts will even the score by granting your Terminators the ability to reroll wound rolls when swinging their power fists against giant-sized targets. So we see Veteran Instincts, 1 command point, 1 fight phase. Target 1 Terminator unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Effect: until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, reroll a wound roll of 1. If that attack targets a monster or vehicle unit, you can reroll the wound roll instead. So pretty neat. I mean, you might use it anytime to reroll 1s, but you're definitely going to be using it against a monster or a vehicle. And this is a perfect example of just how they can use a stratagem or something like that as a lever to balance the game. These rules, shaped by in-depth testing, saw old veterans and brand new Warhammer 40,000 players test their mettle against each other over many, many games, result in a mode of play that's simple at first glance, yet full of depth. With fewer units on the board and fewer abilities to consider, combat patrol is more about working out what to move and when, holding your prize haymaker back until just the right moment, and learning the intricacies of your force's options. Everything you need to play Combat Patrol, apart from the miniatures, will be available for free online when the new edition launches. Introducing a friend to the world of Warhammer 40,000 with the help of your collection has never been easier. You can even set up your own Combat Patrol event. Or why not go wide and collect 1 Combat Patrol from every faction? There are more faction focuses coming soon to the Warhammer community, alongside more information about the game modes that will define a new edition of Warhammer 40,000. So yeah, very cool. I know I, for one, am definitely looking forward to Combat Patrol. I like the ideas of the quick, fun games and the fact that they're all going to be balanced against each other. I'm all about growing the hobby, and I think the absolute best thing for the hobby is removing as many barriers of entry as possible. And if people don't have to buy all their rules and all that stuff, they can literally just pick up 1 Combat Patrol, slap those models together with a little elbow grease, and be playing Warhammer 40,000 in no time. Yes, please. So very, very cool. Definitely excited for the new edition of 40K and also the new way to play in an actual Combat Patrol format. As always, let me know what you think down below. You think this sounds pretty good so far? Are you curious how they're going to be balancing some of the stronger Combat Patrols against some of the weaker ones? Are there going to be issues with some of the Combat Patrols like the Astra Militarum only having like 350 points? And then something like the Custodes having close to 700 points? Because I think those two represent the 2 different extremes that we've seen in these boxes. So if they can balance those 2 against each other, I think they can balance anything. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the video. Check them out to save 15% on Games Workshop products. That's it for today. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and I'm already in love with Combat Patrol. And I'm out of here.